tell me if I'm wrong with what's happening in the world. I don't know what's happening stateside, but in this country, we look at Russia and Ukraine, we look at the Middle East, we look at Gaza and Israel and the Houthis, we look at all of everything. Many people this side of the pond saying we're getting to 39, it's a bit like a Cold War. This is a show of strength, is it not, my friend?
It absolutely is. And there have been a number of such shows of strength since the second invasion just a few years ago of Ukraine. So it's gloomy here in Washington, too. There's just trouble everywhere you look. And it's our election year. So this presidential campaign is going to be full of this kind of hand-wringing about what the future looks like.
So what do you think the Defence Secretary's strategy is? At the end of last week, it was almost as though maybe he phrased things in sort of maybe in an unwise way.
Yeah.
That Grant Shapps was kind of talking about the future of the Royal Marines and kind of questioning their place. Now we're hearing he's saying, you know, buckle up, we're strong, take us seriously.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's the thing about the UK. And I've worked closely with the UK for years when I was in the Pentagon. And the UK is strong. But there's always been a problem about, is there enough UK? Is there enough Royal Marines, enough ships, enough aircraft? That's always been a problem, I know, with the UK for years. Lots of operations that the UK military goes on. We very much like working with the UK, as we saw with these recent strikes on the Houthis. So I think it's a double message. Number one, we are strong. And we're going to be there when there's trouble. But the other part of the message is, but we need to be bigger than we are, because just the sheer amount of trouble that could come our way will call for more in terms of all the allies, not just the UK.
Jim, there's a part of me that thinks that I've got it about me today at 6:20 in the morning. I agree with you. There was a statistic last week on the show that said at one point we had 25 frigates, now we've got 5. Interestingly, our new Foreign Secretary, brought back from the political wilderness and made a lord, David Cameron, was the man who instigated austerity and made most of his cuts by cutting everything to do with defence. And I think you're right. I think, you know, people will say, oh, you're warmongering. But if you look at the situation in the world in general, and the elephant in the room is that you would have to believe that Iran, that axis of sort of Iran, China and Russia is becoming more and more prominent. I think that our special relationship needs to be sustained. But I think we need, as a country here, and I'm not sure about you guys, I think we need to be as strong as we possibly can, don't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we also cut. It was cuts across the board, particularly after the end of the Cold War. And then after the downturn in the world economy back in 2008, 2009, there was a wholesale cutback in defense. And we have been in this hole in terms of capability that we're now trying desperately to climb out of. And it's not just the UK, it's the US too, it's the French, the Germans. It's across the board. Putin knows that. And so do the Chinese. And so their calculations must be, should we do something before the West rebuilds its military? Should we, you know, or should we, you know, we don't want to wait until they become too strong, whether it's Taiwan or Ukraine, whatever it might be. So certainly in Moscow and in Beijing, they see us trying to get stronger. And that must be part of their calculation about when do they take action to take some of their, to make some of their goals, whether it's Taiwan or anything else.
Well, speaking about what the Foreign Secretary David Cameron said, he said it was hard to think of a time when Western governments had faced so many disparate threats and that the lights are absolutely flashing red on the global sort of dashboard.
Why did he cut the armed forces then?
If he thinks that, what do you think we might see from the UK and maybe the US to try and counter that, if that's what our Foreign Secretary believes?
Well, certainly red lights are flashing across dashboards across the alliance. That's why we're having this big exercise. The NATO summits have highlighted this, that nations have got to get stronger in terms of their capabilities. I think what we're going to see, certainly here in the U.S., there is going to be a big push to try to certainly strengthen our Navy. Certainly try to increase the Army participation in terms of soldiers that we're short of right now. So we have our problems here for sure. I know UK is struggling to do that too. I think your defense secretary has talked about that, and I'm sure it'll be in the parliament today too. But there is no doubt, whether it's in the UK or across the alliance, we have to do more. The NATO secretary has said that. We've got to get the political will to spend the money that it's going to take.